authority, but never to the federal government, and certainly not to corporations. Well, why are the superintendents of these Catholic schools ignoring the cornerstone of the social teaching of the Catholic Church, their employer? Where are the bishops in this? Bishops need to be called upon for an explanation, and we need to ask them. I beg you today to go talk to all Catholic parents that you know about the dangers of Common Core testing that goes along with it. The superintendents will tell you they're only taking bits and pieces of Common Core, so there's nothing to be worried about. Well, are they taking money from the Gates Foundation? Are they taking money from the federal government? Examine it and follow the money. If they haven't learned by now, if they are taking the money, that there will be a price to pay. Demands will be made. Haven't the Catholics learned anything about what the HHS mandate has done? Please, parents, grandparents, get involved and call everybody you know and tell them to get involved. There's no time for apathy on this. We, the people, cannot abdicate our educational decisions and our kids to Bill Gates and other unelected officials and the federal government. Parents are still the primary educator of their children, and our kids are not for sale. Catholic schools, private schools, charter schools, there is no need to follow those whom you already lead. Why spend untold dollars that we do not have on Common Core and PARC when on any given day districts and entire states are passing legislation against both? Even the Gates Foundation has declared a two-year moratorium on PARC because there was so much pushback across the nation. And yet, administrators continue to push ahead and try to implement the whole thing. I really have to scratch my head. What happened to common sense? What happened to engage parents? Come on, parents. Come on, grandparents. Speak up. Question everything. I know I personally refuse to leave this planet before I try to make a difference for my grandchildren. It is personal. And finally, and when in the Catholic and the private schools, they try to tell you that they're only doing a little bit of Common Core, so it's not going to hurt the classical education that you are paying for, then you remind them that you can take a clear glass of water, which may be really good for you, and add just one tiny little drop of poison, and it will still kill you. Thank you for your kind listening.
Thank you, Jane. Next up is Mark Fisher. Mark is the owner of Merchants Fabrication in Auburn, Mass., a metal manufacturing facility. He graduated from Hartford State Technical College, now Capital Community College, in 1979 with a degree in nuclear engineering technology. He graduated from Worcester Polytech Institute in 1983 with a degree in mechanical engineering and later earned a master's degree in manufacturing and an MBA. Mark is here to speak to his beliefs that families and local school districts are the ones best suited to make decisions regarding the education of students in their communities. Mark?
Thank you very much, Ruth, and thank you all, the Common Core Forum, and all those here today. We wouldn't have to be here today if our elected officials were as concerned about our children as we are. Sadly, they're more concerned about promised funding than they are about the welfare of the children they're entrusted to educate. Make no mistake about it, there's no amount of funding that can make up for the bankruptcy of a program as bad as Common Core. We all know the horrors about this proposed federal takeover of public education. I'm not going to tell you about them. You already know about them, and that's why you're here today. I want to encourage you in the ways to defeat it. This is the fourth rally that I've been at this year on these very steps. And the common thread among all of them is that those in charge who are supposed to be looking out for our better welfare have simply not done it. But each rally has succeeded. First, in the release of Justina Pelletier. Second, in the reduction of the assault on our Second Amendment rights. And then thirdly, in stopping the additional influx of illegal immigration. But let's not forget the most spectacular success. The most spectacular success are the market basket employees. They stood together until their leadership got it. So let these success stories be a great example to us. Their victories can be ours as well. So we're not fighting alone in this. We're joining the fight of all those who have fought and won and have opted out of Common Core. If our leaders won't lead, then let them follow. Let them follow the lead of other states that have opted out. Let them follow the lead of the Chicago Teachers Union, which is against Common Core. Let them follow the lead of the New York Teachers Association, which is against Common Core. And let them follow the lead of the president of the Massachusetts Teachers Association, who is against Common Core. If our elected officials won't lead, let's make them follow us. Let's let them hold their feet to the fire. Let's stay in this fight, and that's how we succeed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. Sorry about that. Next, we have Summer Smalling. Summer is here to present her point of view as a parent, taxpayer, school committee member, and a citizen who opposes the encroachment of federal government into our schools and the resulting loss of local control. Summer?
Thank you, everyone. I'm very nervous, so please excuse me. I am a mother of two. My daughter's in 4th grade. My son is in kindergarten. I'm very involved in my children's education. Therefore, I ran for school committee and was elected this past May. I'm currently employed, thank you, currently employed at Tufts Medical School in a research laboratory, so education is very important to me, and it was the foundation of what got me to where I am today. For me, the first red flag is when my daughter was chosen to participate in the park pilot program at her school. So I began asking my local administrators about the test and found that they had less knowledge about park than I did from a simple Google search. Finally, when I realized my daughter, my 8-year-old, would be taking park in addition to the MCAS, I realized I needed to put on the brakes and be involved. There is no academic benefit to my child participating in this program. Therefore, she did not participate in the program. I held a forum in my hometown to educate other parents of the changes taking place in their kids' classrooms and made exhausted efforts to reach out to the members of the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, including Chairman Mitchell Chester, but I never received a response, not even to respectfully decline. I find it a bit disturbing that these people have control over a large portion of my child's day, yet make no effort to engage in parents when they are interested in learning about the changes in their classroom. I'm extremely unsatisfied with the changes I have seen as a parent in the content of my children's coursework, the recent stress brought to teachers with the increase in standardized testing, and the surging financial burden these changes have inflicted on the local taxpayer. As a former member of my town's finance committee, I have had the opportunity to see the management of local finances both through the lens of the town and as a taxpayer. Local aid to cities and towns has decreased since 2008, making less money available to municipalities to assist in rising educational costs. Race to the top monies granted by the federal government to install assessments aligned to Common Core, known as PARC here in Massachusetts, will not cover the full cost of transitioning to Common Core or implementing PARC. On a side note, if Massachusetts standards have been noted by both Bill Gates and President Obama as the best in the country, because we have a state with the highest and most remarkable educational achievements, why wasn't Race to the Top not dubbed the Race to be Massachusetts? It would have been free to adopt our standards, and there's no copyright on it. No federal funds would be needed. Switching to Common Core standards has resulted in curriculum changes involving new textbooks and materials. Some of these changes to the curriculum are very heavy online components. This increases the need for a one-on-one technology initiative, technology support in the classroom, and increased updated equipment. The money for these needs will fall on the backs of taxpayers. PARC is an unfunded mandate. There has been no cost analysis of PARC done by the legislature. If your district decides to implement PARC online rather than by pen and paper, the technology upgrades will become absolutely necessary. But the question begs, why are we wasting tax dollars to train teachers and to administer PARC when we have already vetted MCAS, spent millions of taxpayer dollars on Massachusetts educational frameworks, and we rank nationally in education? Why are we throwing that investment away? With state aid decreasing and the cost of education continually rising, the implementation of Common Core will be devastating to families, communities, and taxpayers who are already struggling. Cities and towns may face challenges such as choosing between funding an ever-increasing school budget to meet mandated changes, or funding the needs of other local departments such as police, highway, and fire. Recently, in my own hometown, our last town meeting voted the school budget under the requested amount by the school committee. This trend is not only indicative of the financial hardships families are facing, but I can't help but ask, what if the money for the rapidly increasing school budget simply isn't available? As a school committee member, I have recently become more aware and concerned with the loss of local control regarding education. A federal statute written upon the establishment of the U.S. Department of Education proclaims there shall be no increase in authority of the federal government over education. Isn't this precisely what Common Core is implementing with federal standards? Common Core is not a true state-led initiative. It will and already has resulted in the narrowing of the curriculum and the loss of local and state control over our standards. State tests such as MCAS were reviewed by local teachers, consultants, and independent organizations. Under Common Core, these tests are developed by private organizations and out of public view. There is no public release of most or all of the test content. Time spent on these tests is also a major concern for me. With MCAS testing, we have 4 sessions of testing, 2 in ELA and 2 in math. The 2 in reading take place in March, and the 2 in math are scheduled in May, consuming roughly 8 hours of our children's time. Under PARC, our children will undergo 9 testing sessions, 3 in ELA and 2 in math, all scheduled in March, and at the end of the year, 2 in ELA and 2 math sessions, both scheduled in May. This accounts for 18 hours out of the classroom these children are spending on testing. Yet another issue I have with Common Core standards in the PARC assessment is the focus on math and English and disregard for such programs such as art, history, science, and phys ed. A well-rounded education should take into account all of these areas, and none should take a backseat to another in order to emphasize subjects in which our children are being tested. There are no science standards in the Common Core frameworks. Living in Massachusetts, where we are the hub of science, math, and engineering, and being a scientist myself, I find this extremely disturbing that we as a state would adopt education standards that do not include the sciences. As a parent, I have become increasingly troubled with the amount of data collected on our children and from the time they enter preschool to the moment they leave their educational adventure. This data grab is not limited to strictly academic information, but includes such information as behavioral and disciplinary data, socioeconomic data, and your child's emotions while performing school or homework. Emotions? How and why is this relevant? Amendments to the Family Educational Rights Privacy Act, or FERPA, in 2008 and 2011 changed the language requiring parental notification before sharing a student's personally identifiable data to that of best practice to inform parents before releasing such information. Best practice? So I, as a parent, am supposed to hope or assume that the administrators and educators in my child's school district operating under the hand of the federal government with the utmost integrity? Another major change brought about by the amendment to FERPA include the disclosure of personal student information to third parties. A third party is defined as anyone whom the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education deems so, including private companies, volunteers, and consultants. Is there any consideration for a child's lifelong right to privacy? As a concerned parent, I ask as a concerned parent, and I believe every parent should ask, shouldn't the parent be given the clear and concise information on what data is being collected on our children? Shouldn't we have the final say in who has access to this information? Or simply ask, is there a need to collect personal and private information on our children beyond anonymous assessment scores? Common Core's stated goal is to prepare students for jobs or junior college. Is anyone wondering why the same wealthy people who promoted the Common Core are sending their children to private schools unaffected by this overhaul? Who, with a mediocre Common Core education, will become the engineers, doctors, and scientists in our future? None but the children of the wealthy. I just want to thank everyone for coming here today, and I want to thank the parents and teachers who could not be here today but stand with us in solidarity. I want to thank the organizations like Common Core Forum and Liberty Chalkboard for being a voice and a source of information. And I ask that everyone continue to talk to their neighbors, their family, and their friends about Common Core in Park. I ask that parents opt out of Park and show that we do not support the latest change to our schools. I tell my children that being weird is unique and cool. So if we in Massachusetts are weird or unique because we strive for the best education for our children, then I would rather be weird than common.
Yeah!
Thank you so much. Our next speaker is Representative Jim Lyons. Representative Lyons is from the 18th Essex District, representing portions of Andover, North Andover, Boxford, and Tewksbury. He was first elected in November 2010 and serves on 2 joint committees in the House of Representatives, Higher Education and Public Health, as well as on the House Committee on Global Warming and Climate Change. Jim is a graduate of Brandeis University and a local businessman. This past session, Jim introduced legislation to defund Common Core. Jim will speak to his concerns about Massachusetts' adoption of Common Core. Jim.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity to speak today. And following up on what Summer had to say, my boys think that I'm weird, so I fit right in. So, typical Massachusetts, Governor Patrick and Mitchell Chester have decided the way to close the educational gap in Massachusetts is by lowering the ceiling. This is consistent within the Patrick administration. We have seen since 2006 Governor Patrick's ability to lower the standard throughout all government services in Massachusetts. I want to remind you about the standards that he has set within his administration. We're all familiar with the DCF scandal. We're all familiar with the EPT abuse. We're all familiar with the pharmaceutical scandal. We're all familiar with the crime lab scandal. And we're all familiar with what Governor Patrick did in the Justina Pelletier scandal. Governor Patrick and Mitchell Chester, we do not want you to lower the standards on education for our children as you have lowered the standards since you took office in 2006. Mitchell Chester joined us in 2008. He came from Ohio. And in the Harvard newspaper back in February of 2008, Mitchell Chester had a couple of things to say. I come with a broad range of experience and don't have a particular history or loyalty to any constituency in the state. Well, Mitchell Chester, we do have a loyalty to the constituents of our state. We have a loyalty to the children and the parents of Massachusetts, and we resent what you are trying to do to the children and families in Massachusetts. Mitchell Chester went on to talk about a proverb, and he says, there's a proverb that resonates with me. If you want to go fast, go alone. And if you want to go far, go together. Well, Mr. Chester, You have not reached out or even listened to the parents of Massachusetts. We want you to follow your own